All right. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. You guys sent in some interesting source material for us to take a look at this time.
Yeah, this one is pretty unique.
It's a video in Hebrew called 21 Animated Video Series I Would Love to Create if I Had the Right People.
It sounds like a pretty straightforward title, but this person really lays out a whole vision for a bunch of series.
And they're all about anime, particularly Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I guess isn't too surprising. It's a pretty popular franchise with a lot of potential for different stories, you know.
Well, right. But it is pretty cool to see someone go into so much detail about what they'd love to do.
Definitely. And they talk about all the challenges too, right? Like finding people to actually make these shows happen, dealing with things like copyright, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And they don't shy away from the reality of how tough it can be to get a project like this off the ground.
So for this deep dive, I think what we need to do is try to understand what exactly this person wants to create, what hurdles they're facing, and ultimately what makes these aspirations so compelling.
Sounds like a plan. Where should we start?
Well, let's start with the talent side of things. They mention needing animators, writers, voice actors, all the usual suspect. But what struck me is the level of specificity they're looking for.
Especially when it comes to the animation style, right?
Exactly. They really want to stay true to that classic Japanese anime look, which I imagine narrows down the pool of potential collaborators quite a bit.
It definitely does. Finding artists who can not only animate well, but also nail a specific style like that is no easy feat. And they even mention hoping to get the original voice actors involved as possible.
Which, let's be real, is probably a long shot, but it shows how committed they are to authenticity.
And that seems to be a running theme throughout the video, this deep respect for the source material and this desire to build upon it in a way that feels genuine.
It's like they want to create something that feels both familiar and fresh to fans of the original series.
Exactly. It's like a balancing act, respecting the existing canon while also adding something new and interesting to the mix.
Okay, so we've got this creator bursting with ideas, but facing some real-world obstacles. Let's actually dive into some of the specific series concepts they propose.
Okay, sounds good. Which one jumps out at you?
The one that caught my eye first was their idea for a series focused on Jesse Anderson from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
Interesting. What's their angle with that one?
They want to explore Jesse's reactions to the events that happened after his disappearance in the series.
Oh, wow. So kind of like filling in the gaps from his perspective.
Exactly. It's like giving a voice to a character who was kind of left on the sidelines for a significant chunk of the story.
Okay, so for anyone listening who might not be super familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, could you give us a little context about Jesse and why this idea might be so intriguing to fans?
Sure. So GX, which stands for Generation Next, is a spin-off series set a few years after the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. It follows a new generation of duelists at Duel Academy.
Right.
And Jesse Anderson is introduced as this American exchange student who becomes good friends with the main character, Jaden Yuki.
Okay, I'm starting to remember him now.
Yeah, he's a pretty key member of their dueling team, but at some point, he kind of disappears into another dimension. And that's where the creator of this video wants to pick up the story. They want to imagine what happens when Jesse comes back, how he processes all the events he missed, and how his character has grown in the meantime.
Oh, I see. That's actually really clever. It's like allowing him to react to everything the audience already knows, creating a unique layer of engagement.
Exactly. And I think it speaks to the broader appeal of fan-made content. It allows for these deeper explorations, these alternative perspectives that might not get addressed in the main storyline.
Yeah, it's like adding new dimensions to a world that you already love, and this creator isn't stopping there. They also have an idea for a series focused on Ryo Marufuji, another student from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX.
Right. And that one focuses on the time between his presumed death in another dimension and his eventual return.
Exactly. The creator wants to fill in the blanks, explore what might have happened to Ryo during that period, maybe even offer an alternative explanation for how he came back.
It's like they're fascinated by these characters who were kind of sidelined in the original story, and they want to give them their moment in the spotlight.
Yeah, and this is where their awareness of the challenges comes in again. They know that to actually make this happen, they need to find talented writers who can translate these ideas into compelling screenplay.
It's like they understand that having a cool concept is one thing, but executing it well is a whole other ballgame. And that's what really elevates fan-made content from just a fun idea to something truly special.
Couldn't agree more.
So what do you think about these specific concepts so far? What makes them stand out from, say, just retelling existing storyline.
I think the key difference is the focus on emotional depth. They're not just trying to recreate action sequences or duels. It's about delving into the characters' inner lives, their relationships, their journeys.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. They're taking characters we already know and adding a whole new level of complexity to them.
And that brings us to an important point: the importance of understanding the source material. This creator clearly has a deep knowledge of Yu-Gi-Oh!, its characters, its world.
Absolutely. And that's crucial for creating fan-made content that feels authentic and resonates with other fans. It's not just about borrowing names and faces. It's about understanding the heart of the story and building upon it in a meaningful way.
Well said. Now, before we jump into the wider implications of all of this, are there any other specific series ideas that stood out to you?
Oh yeah, there are definitely a few more we can dig into, but I think we've laid a pretty good foundation here. We've got this passionate creator, overflowing with ideas, aware of the challenges, and focused on these really interesting character-driven concepts. I'm excited to see where this deep dive takes us next.
You know what's really impressive as we go through all these ideas? It's not just the stories themselves. It's like this creator has really thought about how to bring them to life, like the whole production side of things.
Right, like they're not just daydreaming, they're actually considering things like how to release the content, what format it would take, how to keep people engaged.
Exactly. They even mention releasing episodes in parts, kind of like how some YouTubers do it, to build anticipation.
That's pretty smart, especially these days where everyone's attention span is, well,
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that's becoming more common with fan projects? Releasing things in parts, I mean?
Good question. I feel like I am seeing it more and more.
It probably has some advantages, right? Compared to just dropping a whole series at once.
Yeah, I guess it lets you get feedback early on and maybe make adjustments if needed. Plus, it creates a kind of community feeling, everyone waiting for the next episode.
Yeah, it makes it more of a shared experience. But I bet it's also pretty challenging.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Keeping the quality consistent over time, sticking to the schedule.
For sure. And that's where having a reliable team becomes even more important.
Right. Like they were saying, finding those animators, the writers, everyone who can really make the vision a reality.
It really highlights how collaborative animation is, right? It's not just one person sitting there drawing. It takes a whole bunch of talented folks working together.
And that makes their desire to find animators who can match that original Yu-Gi-Oh! Style even more crucial.
Absolutely. And it kind of connects to something bigger about fan-made content.
What do you mean?
It's not just little passion projects anymore. The quality is getting so much better, the ambitions are higher, and people are even finding ways to make a living off it.
Oh, yeah, totally. Look at fan films these days. Some of them look incredible. And there are fan games that are as good as anything you'd buy in a store.
And music, too. Fan-made music topping the charts. It's wild.
It's really blurring the line between fan and professional.
Big time. And platforms like YouTube and Patreon, they've been a huge part of that shift. They give creators the tools to reach audiences, connect with fans, even earn some money.
It's like this whole creator economy is emerging, right?
Yeah.
People turning their passions into actual careers.
Exactly. And it's extra interesting when you think about it in the context of FamCon, because for a long time it was just seen as a hobby, a way to show love for something you like, but not a real career path.
Yeah, but that's changing. More and more people are proving that you can build a community, make a living, even get noticed by the studios or companies behind those franchises.
Absolutely inspiring. But going back to our creators video, they do bring up another big challenge, and that's copyright.
Yeah, working with an established franchise like Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's a whole legal minefield to navigate.
They even mention how, sadly, the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Creator, Kazuki Takahashi, passed away, but that doesn't mean copyright issues just disappear.
Right. It's a reminder that even with the best intentions, you got to be careful when you're playing in someone else's sandbox.
It definitely raises some questions about the balance between protecting intellectual property and allowing fans to be creative.
It's tricky, right? On the one hand, you have the people who own the rights and they want to make sure their creation isn't being misused.
But then you have all these passionate fans who just want to express their love for something and maybe contribute to that world in their own way.
There's no easy answer, is there? Especially as fan-made stuff keeps getting bigger and more sophisticated.
Totally. It's an ongoing debate, and honestly, I think fan-made content is forcing everyone to rethink how we view things like authorship and creative expression. It's a pretty exciting time to be following all of this.
It is. So do you think this creator's story, with their ambitions and the hurdles they're facing, reflects where fan-made content is at right now overall?
Oh, for sure. Like you said, there's this explosion of creativity happening. People are so passionate, and technology is giving them the tools to make amazing things.
But yeah, those real-world challenges are still there. Finding the right people to work with, figuring out the legal stuff, making sure you can sustain the project over time.
It's a lot to juggle. So I'm curious, what do you think all of this means for someone else out there who wants to bring their own fan project to life? Like, what can they learn from this creator's story?
I think it shows that even though it's tough, it's not impossible. With dedication, a clear vision, and a willingness to learn, you can achieve some pretty amazing things. And honestly, that's inspiring no matter what your passion is, even if it's not animation. Wow, we've really covered a lot, haven't we? From the tiny details of this creator's ideas to the whole landscape of fan-made content and everything in between.
It's been quite the deep dive.
It has. So as we start to wrap things up, I'm curious, where do you see all this going? Like, what kind of impact could this creator's vision or just the whole idea of fan-made animation in general have on how we tell stories in the future?
That's a really interesting question to think about. Imagine a world where anyone who's passionate about a story can kind of step in and expand on it.
Right. Create new narratives, explore different viewpoints, keep those worlds alive, even if the original creators have moved on.
Exactly. It's like taking a story you love and steering it in a whole new direction. And it's all guided by the fans, by their collective passion.
It makes me wonder, could this lead to a more collaborative kind of storytelling, where the line between the creator and the audience starts to blur?
I think it's already happening in some ways. Look at video games. They're getting more and more interactive all the time. And there are web series where the fans actually...
Yeah. And even this creator, with their ideas about releasing episodes in parts and getting the audience involved, they're embracing that collaborative spirit.
They are. It's like democratizing creativity, giving fans a real voice in shaping the stories they're passionate about.
But it probably brings up a whole new set of challenges too, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, how do you make sure fan-made content stays true to the original? How do you keep things consistent, make sure the quality is good?
Yeah, how do you walk that line between letting fans explore new ideas while still respecting what made the original so special in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question. And I think studios are really starting to pay attention to all of this.
It's got to be tricky for them too, figuring out how to navigate this new landscape.
Absolutely. But that's where that deep understanding of the source material that we talked about earlier becomes so important. It's not enough to just borrow characters or settings. You have to get the themes, the tone, the overall feeling of the original.
Like our creator wanting to capture that authentic Yu-Gi-Oh style, even considering the original voice act. That shows a real dedication to staying true to the source.
It does. And I think that's what makes the difference between just copying something and creating something truly special. You take that respect for the original, combine it with your own unique ideas, and boom, you've got something really cool.
It makes me wonder, what about the impact on the animation industry itself? Are studios taking note of all this high-quality fan-made stuff that's coming out?
I think they have to be. They're realizing that fans aren't just passive viewers anymore. They're a source of creativity and new ideas.
We're even starting to see studios collaborating with fans, bringing them on board for official projects.
It's awesome to see. It benefits everyone, really. Studios get fresh perspectives, and fans get to see their ideas come to life on a bigger scale.
It's so cool to see how storytelling is evolving, how passion and technology are coming together.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think we should leave our listeners with something to ponder, something to spark their own imaginations.
Okay, what do you have in mind?
Well, thinking about all the passion, the challenges, the incredible potential we've talked about, how do you think technology and platforms could evolve to help fan creators even more? What new tools or resources would make it easier for them to overcome obstacles and bring their visions to life in even more amazing ways? That's a question worth thinking about because the future of storytelling in many ways depends on those very creators.
That's a great point. And who knows? Maybe someday, thanks to creators like the one we've discussed today and all the new tools that are coming out, those Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspired animations will actually exist. They'll captivate audiences, expand that universe in ways we can only dream of right now, and show everyone just how powerful fan-made content can be.